post-production is just being able to reflect on what's happened, what you have, looking at your past footage and putting it together in a nice package that you can work with, and gaining the knowledge and the learning from that production to bring forward with you. And then as far as with life, isn't that wonderful that we can look back without judgment, of course, on what we've done, what we did in that certain moment, bringing that learning forward and saying, okay, if that were to ever happen again, this is what I would do. Just being able to apply what we learned from reflecting on how we did before, so that's the great part that I love about post-production. And also like making it, I call it flossy.
Yes.
Flossy and glossy.
Yes.
So you can really polish yourself up, polish your life up once you're reflecting back. Like if I had to reflect back in this moment on my life, like where I am now and what I would want to bring from the past.
Oh my gosh, I love that because my sister and I speak about that all the time. The energy, the intuition, sometimes you can't even put a logical thing to it, but it's just a feeling, and learning to trust that, because I know for myself, I always tried to make logical sense of it. And I was always too trusting of people, even up till today, it's like, Yumna, you got to be discerning as to who you trust, who you confide in, what you're sharing, like kind of the naivety that I have within me. And so I think like picking up on your intuition, even if you can't really put your finger on it, but there's this feeling, I think really try to lean into that. It's very, very powerful. It really is. Even if it makes no logical sense at all, there's a lot of power in that. So I love what you said there.
They don't understand how you could possibly do that. Even myself, sometimes I don't have to know the how. And I finally told myself, you don't need to know how it's going to happen. My focus is making sure everything within me is aligned to it already being here already. I put it out there. I say, this is what I want. And then I just start being grateful for it already being here. Like, thank you for my babies. Thank you for my new job. Thank you for my new company. Thank you for my $1 million, $1 billion, whatever it is. But not being in this space of, I'm gonna, but being in the space of I am already. And that's what creates the energy in you to kind of vibrate, to even attract it to you. Because I also don't do a whole lot of work sometimes.
Welcome to the Life Unlock Code, the podcast where we explore the keys to unlocking your true potential, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Yumna Aysen, a success coach and a motivational speaker who is here to guide you on your journey of personal growth, resilience, and transformation. So whether you're looking to overcome self-doubt, build unshakable confidence, or live a life of purpose, this podcast is your go-to source for insights, inspiration, and real talk. So are you ready to transition from the ordinary to the extraordinary and rise to your fullest potential? Well, let's dive in.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Life Unlock Code. I am very, very excited for this episode today. Like tops marks excited. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest with me today named Antoy, and she will be introducing herself in a little bit. But just to give you a snippet as to what this whole episode is about, it's titled, Your Life is the Show. So I'm really excited. It's a metaphor for a whole bunch of things concerning your life. And I want you to think about a question. If you were to envision your life on the big screen, so envision that. Ask yourself that question. Are you performing someone else's script? Or are you living your own script, your own life? So we'll be addressing this question and addressing authenticity, the characters in your story, who you are, being the director, the producer, and the star of your very own show. So let's get started. So here is beautiful Antoy. So Antoy is the president of the International Coaching Federation, the NYC chapter, one of the biggest chapters is in the entire world. And I met, so ICF for short, I met Antoy through, I think it was like a webinar, like maybe last year or something. And I just switched my ICF chapter from South Africa to New York. And I said, I have to check it out. And I said, wow, the energy is amazing. And I got in a call with Antoy. She saw something in me, and boom, here I am today on the marketing committee. I'm a co-chair with another person named Sarah, and we are here today together, and we're recording this podcast. I set a manifestation and intention that I want to record a podcast with Antoy, and I'm so happy that it has come to fruition, and we're doing it here today. So Antoy, I will hand it over to you. Let introduce yourself to our lovely listeners today.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful setup. It's taking me back to when we first met.
Yes.
But for those that don't know, I'm Antoy Grant. I am the current president of ICF NYC. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, so I own Mango Seed Productions in Los Angeles, Mango Seed Entertainment in New York, and I'm a recently launched Coaching Heroes, which is a coaching school. So I am super excited about that. But what I do is I am a multi-hyphenate and I am a writer, producer, director. I run cameras, I do editing, and I'm also working in the transformational world. So I am an ICF credential coach and an author and content creator. So I do a lot of different things. And this is the perfect topic for me because to be able to merge my entertainment background and how to unlock your life code, right?
Yes.
It's awesome to kind of merge these two metaphors together and have something amazing for everyone that's watching and listening.
Yes. Wow. Wow. What an introduction, Antoy. As you can see, to all my listeners out there, she is highly accomplished. Whenever I see Antoy, I think of Antoy, I see it as a boss lady. That is like the word that I could use. I'm just so inspired every single day. And she is honestly a pioneer in every facet of life. I always love bringing guests onto my show that are very unique. And I feel like Antoy is definitely a very unique individual. And so, of course, we chose the live show, your live show, because this is definitely in the field of what Antoy is all about. So we're going to be actually kind of comparing it to a movie, from pre-production to production to post-production to marketing to everything in between. So let's get started, right? So I was thinking we could start, Antoy, with the pre-production side of things, looking at the vision of what your life is, where it is that you want to go, and how it plays out. And also giving yourself grace that sometimes it doesn't 100% plan out to be the way you want it to, but that is the beauty of life itself. And I want you to realize that the vision of your life is something that is beautiful. It is something that is unique to you. And I want you, just like I said in the beginning, to live your own story. You write your own script. You are the director, the producer, the star of your own show. So I want you to remember that. So ask yourself, what is that vision that you have for your life? And I want to hand it over to Antoy. How about you tell us, Antoy, looking at the pre-production side of things, looking at the vision of what you see your life to be, what are some of the key takeaways that you have discovered in your life regarding all of this?
Yeah. Wow. This is going to be fun. This is going to be so much fun. So I want to take it back just a little bit. I want to go back to development because that's kind of where in the production, entertainment, show, film part, it's definitely like the creative, unfiltered ideas. So that's when you kind of get to sit down and you have an idea and a vision and you just kind of like let your mind go free and you imagine all the possibilities that it could be. You don't filter at this point. This is the point where you're just like dreaming as big as you can dream. So whatever that blockbuster movie is, or whatever that amazing television show is, you're just kind of allowing all of those ideas and the thoughts to come out. And it's the same thing with your life. You don't want to edit as you're dreaming. You don't want to edit, because you'll start saying, do I have enough money? Do I have this? All these thoughts and ideas will come in. So when you're in that development phase where you're developing, you let your mind just go unfiltered and just work it out. Just put it down on paper, put it on your vision board, put it wherever it is, and just let it be out there. Now, once you get that out, of course, you have to streamline it, edit it, and bring it back in a little, like really put it through a filter, like, okay, can this happen? What do I want to change? What I really want it to look like? Okay, let's take that out. Let's take that out. Maybe you put a little bit of this in. So it's kind of like a fun, creative process of envisioning your life in its most magnificent and all it could be. And then also in the development phase, once you have that full idea of what you'd like to do, you're kind of starting to think about what are the key players that could add to that. Who's going to be my inner circle that could really bring all these visions to life? Who are those people? And just to reflect back on, probably one of my very first stories of that would connect development to how it connects to your life. I was a little kid in Jamaica and I was watching television, and I saw the prime minister on television. Now, in Jamaica at that time, we didn't have good, service. So I had one of those, the old school antennas and the aluminum foil and all of those things, like hanging from the TV and adjusting it to try to get the right frequency so that I could watch TV. And in that moment as a kid, that's when my dream of being in the entertainment business or just creating a life within the business happened, because I saw someone on television speaking, the prime minister, and I said, I'm going to do that. I don't know how. I was completely, I wasn't filtering it. I just knew that someday I would be in the United States and I would be on television. So that's an example of just allowing, and I was a child, so it's just allowing your mind to just go free and jump into the creative flow.
Wow, amazing. And I did not know this story. How interesting. It's amazing what, as a child, what you pick up. You just watch something on television, you see someone doing something, and you don't even know what an effect it can actually have on your adult life. And look at where you are today. Just seeing a prime minister on that aluminum foil, the antennas, everything. I remember in South Africa, it was like that too. I think we only had maybe like 2 channels or 3 channels. It was like really little. And I absolutely, love that. And tell me, Antoy, what do you love about the field that you're in, And I know this is something that I know I've spoken to some friends about. They envision themselves, they're in corporate at the moment and they would love to be on television. They would love to have their own show, to have their own podcast, to be an actor, a voice actor, but they just feel like it's something that is too big for them. Like, what is the feel like? What made you say, I'm going to take that jump? This is what I'm going to choose.
Well, I think we all are there when we have these big ideas. We're like, oh my God, am I enough? Can I do this? How are we going to do it? And it's I always say, like, there's the saying, how do you eat a whole, it's probably not something good to say. I'll say, how do you eat a whole cake? One bite at a time, So it's about taking those pieces. And an area that I work in a lot with my clients are goal planning, goal setting, and execution. So when you have something so big, the best way to tackle it is to break it down into those little steps that are manageable, that you can actually complete one step at a time, that leads to that big thing actually being completed. And that's the thing. Sometimes some people think differently. So some people have big visions and some people have the step visions. And I think sometimes the people that have these huge visions, sometimes they can get trapped in that vision by it seems so overwhelming to accomplish all of the pieces that it takes to do it. So I always say the easiest way to do it is one bite at a time.
Yes, I love that. When you think about that big goal that you have, it looks like this huge mountain, but if you just break it down into those little tiny steps, I think it makes a big difference. And one of the things that you immediately brought to mind when I thought about goals is, have you ever heard of this, Antoy? It's I heard it on, I think, a video long ago about goals with soul and setting a goal with soul, because every one of us knows SMART goals, right? It's something that we learn about in school, in college, the regular thing. But I think something that keeps you going and will keep you from procrastinating and quitting on your goals is infusing your soul in it. The reason why you decided that this is the path that I want to do. This is my why. And always remembering that, to put that in your goal. Is that something that you've ever heard of, Antoy?
Well, I have lots of soul.
You do. You do.
And I agree with you. You have to have, your soul is your why, and you really have to have a strong why. And sometimes there's a method that we do in coaching, at least I do with my clients, and I'll ask them, why do you want to accomplish that? And you keep asking, and then they give you an answer and you say, but why? But why? And you keep asking why? Usually by maybe between 10 and 20 times of asking that, that's when they really get that, oh my God, aha moment. Like, that's a strong enough reason for me to really want what I want. And just for an example, let's say someone says, I want to do a podcast. Well, why do you want to do a podcast? Well, I want to change lives. And it sounds great. It sounds wonderful. And maybe that is a strong enough why for some people. But then if I kept asking, so why else would you want to do it? Why else? And then the person gets to, I really want to set an example for my child. And then that really hits for them. So, it's kind of exploring what's going to be the strongest why. It's not just having a why. But what's the strongest thing that's going to make you continue to do it, even if it's not working? Day after day, month after month, year after year, it has to be strong enough to keep you going. And to reflect back on our metaphor with pre-production, during the pre-production part is where we do all of that planning, where we work out all of that, So why are we doing this? What is the time frames? What is the scheduling? And bringing in the resources to really make it happen. So, so it's awesome to be able to have a strong why.
Yes. I absolutely love what you said. And I completely agree. Asking why multiple times over, and it's not just the why, it's the strongest why. Beautifully said. And there's so much that goes into our metaphor, the pre-production, the resources, the community, who you're surrounding yourself with. And I think going back to who you're surrounding yourself with, I think that's highly important, because if you're not surrounding yourself with the right people, you can derail your plan. It can derail your plan. And, just like that saying goes, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most with, right? And it's so important. Yeah, go ahead, Antoy.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that a little bit, because you could do everything right on your side. You could do it all right. You could have a great plan, a great vision. You could, even put a great team together. But if there's that one person, you have not the right circle of people around you or the right team, that that life is not going to do well, because you're going to have this negative entity, a person who's, a naysayer, whatever those negative traits are, kind of raining on your parade. So it's vitally important to, as you're yourself envisioning what your life is and planning all of that, you have to bring those key players in. It's the same thing like when you're casting or when you're hiring your producer, director, or whoever for your show, you want to bring on the best of everything, the best. And I've been on sets where someone might have been the best, but they were just not the best person. So it made it for rough working environments throughout the project. So you definitely want people who are aligned with your vision, and who can
Yes.
execute your vision, but also bring like the fun. I call it the fun. Bring the
Yes.
fun and make it not feel like work while you're executing that vision.
Yeah. Oh, that is so, so true. So much power and truth in what you said in that. And I think sometimes people may underestimate how big that plays in their life too. Of course, there's the willpower of you too, but there's also the support system, the resources, like you said, the talent, the skills, the community. I think that's so, so important. And so,
Yeah.
Antoy, when you're thinking about the people that you're surrounding yourself with, are there like, specific questions that you can like ask yourself to kind of assess, are these the people that I want to have in my life, or that's going to take my life to the next level?
Well, one thing I've found in selecting people, and this is whether I'm doing casting or I'm doing life.
Yes.
uh, so you have to be very clear on what your vision is, what you're trying to execute, and then be very specific about how and what that
Yes.
person, if you're building something like a show or a film or your life, how that person fits into that equation.
Yes.
So for example, like I was saying earlier, if you are doing a sci-fi movie, let's just say, you're
Yeah.
not going to hire a cinematographer that does romantic comedies necessarily. You would
Yes.
hire someone who does sci-fi. So it's just being really specific about your vision. And each person is kind of like a piece of that vision. So whatever their role is within your movie, your show, your life, they are highly qualified for that role. And also for me, it's all about your energy. Energy's probably even, I will hire
Yes.
someone who may not be as qualified if they have the right energy. Just because that's what I vibrate and that's what I want to have around me. So
Yes.
if you're a person that also wants to create, a certain type of environment around you, it's important to do that.
Yes.
There's one question, that they always ask when you interview people. It's like, so why did you apply for this? But
Yes.
but I always ask, like, what is it about what you saw in my ad or what you see about me that makes you want to be a part of this? And then
Wow.
you just let them talk. You let them talk. And
Yes.
even when they stop, you let them talk and you
Yeah.
listen and you listen
Right.
intently on what's coming back. Because people really do tell you everything when you meet them.
Yes.
If you ask them and you listen, they will
Mm.
tell you. And if you're listening, you will hear it. So, but I also have an astute skill where I can kind of read someone's resume and I can look at their picture and I don't know what it is. I can kind of sense, it's almost like I feel a connection with them, or I can talk to them and I feel a connection and I know that they're part of my tribe. I call it part of my tribe. And it doesn't mean that if someone's not a part of my tribe that there's something wrong. It's just
Mm.
we're all we're vibrating at the same frequency with what we're trying to create together. So those are the things
Yes.
I look at. I look at energy, I look at their positivity, I look at their talent, their ability, and
Yes.
just their level of confidence in everything they're doing. I don't always pick people that are confident because part of my mission, I love to mentor. So sometimes I'll see
Mm.
something in someone or someone wants to develop in a certain area and I'll bring them on and team them with someone who's more advanced and kind of, will help bring them along. So yeah, but you
Yes.
have to, and last thing is just noticing red flags because I think what we do is
Yes.
a lot of times we always want to see the best in everyone. We do.
Mm.
It's just a natural thing. Like we'll see it. We'll be like, okay, well, that usually equals that. But in your brain, you're like, oh no, that's not what I'm really seeing. This person, I can't, or I haven't known them long enough or talked to them long enough to really be able to confirm what it is that I'm feeling. So whenever you have that moment or you feel something in your body or you hear something, it's usually, triggering something in you that says something about this
Yes.
person does not align with where you're going or what you're doing.
Yes.
And what I've learned over time is like, I don't need to go through the process to find out what that really is. Like
Yes.
I can just trust that if I'm feeling
Yes.
something, that there's something there. Do I need to go through all the drama to find out? I love drama, but not that kind of drama on
Yes.
screen.
On screen.
So
Yes.
noticing the red flags up front and not having to go through the process to find out why you were feeling there was the red flag in the first place.
Yes, I love what you said. And I remember the first time you told me, we were speaking the other day and you spoke about energy. And after that call, I said, oh my gosh, I love that because my sister and I speak about that all the time. The energy, the intuition, sometimes you can't even put a logical thing to it, but it's just a feeling, and learning to trust that, because I know for myself, I always tried to make logical sense of it. And I was always too trusting of people, even up till today, it's like, Yumna, you got to be discerning as to who you trust, who you confide in, what you're sharing, like kind of the naivety that I have within me. And so I think like picking up on your intuition, even if you can't really put your finger on it, but there's this feeling, I think really try to lean into that. It's very, very powerful. It really is. Even if it makes no logical sense at all, there's a lot of power in that. So I love what you said there, and noticing the red flags, because I know I'm always like, I see the best in this person. Like I want to believe that they are the best ever. They're a ray of sunshine. But then there are things that are there. It's like, well, Yumna, like there's this voice, you should be kind of looking at that,
Mm-hmm.
you really should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And one thing I just wanted to add with that, it's not about good or bad. Is that person good or is that person bad? It's just about, it's like if we relate it to our metaphor, if you're doing a romantic comedy, you want to align with people that are doing romantic comedies, So
yes,
if you're
yes,
anime, you want the anime people. So it's just, if you're sensing something like, okay, as far as it goes with my life and my vision and my show and my film that I'm creating of my life, I'm sensing that this person may not align with that. If you look at it more like that, it's like an easier process than saying that person has good or bad traits, in that way. Because
yes,
we want to be kind and we want to give people grace, but you can't give them too much, It's kind of like, and I'll,
yes,
I'll make it even plainer for you. So let's say you had to, God forbid, had open heart surgery or something,
yeah,
and you were, interviewing doctors, and someone said, well, I'm really a brain surgeon, but I just switched over to doing heart surgery. And then you interviewed these other people who were heart surgeons, and
yeah,
that's all they did. That's all they've ever done. You may be more likely to lean towards the people that have been doing it for a while and not the person that just switched into it.
yes,
So,
that's
and it
true.
doesn't mean that that doctor who's done brain surgery switching to heart surgery suddenly, like maybe they're great, maybe they're wonderful, maybe they're a genius, but it's your life. So you'd be more likely to trust someone who's an expert and have been doing it. So it's kind of like that, when you're screening people or casting people or whatever you want to call it in your life, you want to make sure that
Yes,
they're aligned, because what happens is if you have
yes,
experts in every area of your life for the things you're trying to accomplish, you're going to get through faster. It's going to be a faster
yes.
process, not a slower process. So you want to be able to pick the right experts for what you're trying to create for your life and your show and your film.
Yes, I love that. And I love how you relate to that back to the metaphor. Like if it's like a romance show, like, is this person in alignment with that? Show that you're trying to produce, and surrounding yourself with different experts for different facets of your life, I think is so important. I think that's why I love, ever since I grew up and even today, I try to make it intentional that I surround myself with diverse people. I absolutely love diversity, different cultures, different backgrounds, different points of view. I think it really, really brings richness, if I could say it, to your life,
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something that I just wanted to put a little fun
Yes.
into it. So when you're doing that movie or that TV show or whatever, it's very defined. So it's like, what type of show is it? So if you were thinking of your life as a show, like, what kind of
Yes.
show is this? Is this like a sitcom? Is this like a dramatic series? Because there's some people, their life is definitely a dramatic
Oh,
series.
yeah.
So, and I mean, it's not like they categorized it that way. It just ends up being that. So sometimes, you have to think about what category your life falls into. And this goes
Yeah.
into like even you as, we're going to get to it later, but as far as in the production of who you are and who your life is, you do kind of have an idea. My life has gone through different various productions. I'm like Madonna, like I know how to reinvent myself so many times. so, I started out, I was shy as a young kid, and,
Yes.
I started modeling and having to be on stage and walking the runway. I had to get some
Wow.
confidence because, they make you walk. You do that walk
Mm,
even. And so even if you're not confident, you got to bring it. So that's, another evolution of what you're trying to create. And then I became an actor, which is another level. Now you're
wow.
talking, so
Mm,
another level of your evolution. And then, I became an entrepreneur, and that's a whole
yes.
other thing, So as we evolve and step into these different facets of our story, and I guess you could look at those as chapters, you could look at them as episodes. As you're
Yes.
evolving, you're kind of evolving and changing and presenting a brand new production each time, a brand
Yes.
new episode of you, different versions of yourself. Now I've added coaching to my repertoire, and I can't say that I always know how all of these things fit in. I still may not have that all figured out, but I come out with the production of, okay, so now I'm a coach. So what does that mean? What is that vision like? What is that image like? What is that branding like? What does that production look like? Because if you're presenting yourself as a coach or an entrepreneur or an actor, there's different facets that are on hype. Like if I
Yeah.
go to a fashion show, it's a different wardrobe than if I'm going to the boardroom, So
Yes.
we're constantly producing ourselves, like constantly, and even within the show of our life, we're producing episodes and we're producing
That's
different
right.
scenes. And so each scene you want to be, even on its own, you want it to be able to be taken apart and say, that was the best scene I've ever seen, whatever that scene
Yes.
is. So whether it was, me as an actor, as a model, like whatever it may be, you can look back and say, wow, I was the best at that.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I loved hearing this story. This is also the first time that I'm hearing your story, how you started, being a model, going to acting, yeah, being an entrepreneur. All of these things are completely different ball game. They are a different ball game. They require a different mindset, and they require you to be willing to lean into change. And that's very hard for a lot of us to do. And sometimes why a lot of people, don't pursue their dreams, because it's like, ooh, that change is too much. I don't know. I want everything to be perfect before I actually execute upon it. I think just like you, I was very shy. I couldn't order pizza in the food court. I used to give my money to my sister so she could talk to the people there and get my pizza. Even on the telephone, order pizza on the telephone. Oh no, that is not my thing.
I think everyone, when they step into doing something new or putting themselves out there in a different way, or, going for something really in their minds, what's big, there is fear. I think it just is. But the
Yes,
difference is who's willing to do it anyway. Like,
right.
even, are you scared? And you're like, you know what? I'm scared. But, let's see what
Yes.
happens, or let's just do it anyway. So I think
Mm,
sometimes people think in their own space, in their own movie, in their own film, that, they're the only ones that feel this way. But everyone, I think, feels that way, unless you're a billionaire, maybe you're not fearful that the rocket is going to But I think even with them, when that rocket is going up to
Yes.
outer space, they're probably like, oh, I hope it makes it, So I think there's kind of fear everywhere. It's just a matter of pushing through it and getting to
Yes.
where you have to do. And I think once you push through that and you have success, or even if you have failure sometimes, it gives you the confidence. You're like, okay, well, I'll
Yes.
never do that again, or that really worked, So,
Right.
and then you just keep going and keep going towards what you have to accomplish.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so, so powerful. I love that where you discuss fear and confidence. And, I honestly do believe, and I'm also an over preparer. Oh my goodness. I don't know how people do the last minute thing. The anxiety will be anxietying. I prepare way before time, but I understand that as time has went on by, that there is beauty in, taking things as they come. I like to have structure, but now more flexibility as well. And there's magic that comes out of the unknown, the unpredictability, which is just so, so beautiful. And just doing it anyways. And Antoy, now that we're in that execution phase, we're in the production end of things in our grand metaphor. Right? the grand metaphor. I wanted to ask you, this is something that I mentioned in the beginning of our podcast, is there's so many times where we want to execute upon a vision that we have, and but sometimes we're following someone else's script, or in other words, their steps on how to get there, right? And we start forgetting about, well, how would I do this? There's many different airplanes or ships of getting to that destination, but I think it's important to try to follow our definition of what, say, that how to looks like. What does success look like for us? It may look like something different for you, Antoy, but for me, it's a bit different, right? And so trying to figure out, people put say societal norms or rules out there, but is that true for you? You got to ask yourself that question. And Antoy, for our listeners out there, what would, kind of be like the advice that you would give to people who are, struggling on pursuing and executing upon their own scripts instead of following about what other people are doing?
Wow. Well, as you were talking, something was coming to mind about following your own script. I'm
Yes.
going to share a little story. Well, I don't know how little it is. It's ongoing. But, it took me a while to meet my husband. So I met him
I
later in
see.
life. And one of the things, once I finally met someone that I felt like I could marry, we wanted to have a family. But because I was, advanced in age, as they say, and
Yeah.
also I had some medical issues. Every doctor I went to, I'm talking multiple doctors, the best, told me that I could not have children. They were like, you cannot have
Oh,
children. And I saw many specialists, many doctors, looked at all my scans, my x-rays, and looked at it and said, no, I probably can't based
yeah.
on how these scans look. But somewhere in my spirit and with my husband, we really wanted to have a family. That was part of our life vision,
Yeah.
was to have a family. So I kept believing, and I'm a very spiritual person, a person of faith. So I felt it in my spirit and my being that I was going to be a mom. I was even having dreams of
Wow.
the babies in the cribs and things. So, but I was still getting that, sorry, can you see your scans, what they look like? No, you can't have a child.
Yeah.
So I kept searching though. And this is a long process over years and years and years and
Wow.
years. And so finally, I was in New York and I actually had a medical issue. So I had to go see a doctor. And this
Yes.
doctor, I was talking to this doctor and I said, hey, do you know any specialists for, IVF or fertility? And so she was like, yeah, actually a friend of mine, but I don't know if he's taking patients, but, I can recommend you. So I was like, definitely. Like, I'd seen everyone else.
Yes.
So, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was in New York visiting my husband. And so I went to see this doctor, and he was one of the top 5 specialists in IVF in the world. Like, he teaches
Wow.
IVF. And I went to see him, did all the tests that I've been doing over and over again, where people would tell me
Yes.
no at the end of it. And he said, yes. He was like, we're going to
Wow.
get you pregnant. And I was, at first, my belief was there because my vision was
Yes.
there in every part of me, but I also knew the reality of what everyone has been showing me and what all these
Yes.
specialists who are trained and experts in what they do were telling me. And so, but I was like, well, he's a bigger expert than they are. So if he thinks he can get me
Yes.
pregnant, then let's do it. So we did go through the process. And it took years. It took years. It's a long process, lots of shots and, disappointments, blood draws in the morning, everything.
Wow.
But I gave birth to my son in 2020, and then my daughter
Oh,
later. So now I have 2 children. And this is
amazing.
after years of people
Mm,
telling me I couldn't. And I carried both of them myself, which is a miracle in and of itself. I do believe God is on my side.
yes.
But that's an example of, I would not have my children right now if I
Mm,
listened to the experts on how I could
wow.
not have children. And the key to that is, I felt my vision was so clear that I could see my husband and I with children, and we both believed it. So no matter what anyone said, we were like, okay, you're not the person.
Yes.
Everyone we talked to that said, no, you're not the person. And even when I found my doctor, he was like, because of your medical conditions, we're going to have to do some surgery before you can go through the IVF. So he sent me to a surgeon, and the surgeon said, do you see your scans?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, if this is how you are going into the surgery, we can't work together, because
Wow.
I'm coming from a different
Mm,
space of that this can happen. My doctor's coming from a space that this could happen. He sent me to you. So obviously he believes that this can happen. So if you're not on board, because I'm going to be under, so there's nothing I can say,
yes.
if I'm under and you decide, oh, this isn't working, you want to take everything out. So if you're not on board with me, let's not do this. And I
Yes.
literally told him that. And then years later, after I had my son and I went back to my doctor, they're actually in the same office now. So they're like, oh, so I took him down so he could meet my son. And he was just
Ah.
like, he goes, well, you're just a miracle. It's not natural for that to happen. So that's just an example of having a vision. And even though if you feel it so strongly and you have that vision so strongly, to just stick with it and find your team, like find your team.
Yes.
Because I had like an amazing IVF team. I didn't even know they existed over years and years and years of hearing no.
Wow. Oh my
So that was what
gosh.
was coming to mind as you were talking. And once I found them, it became a whole big production. It was like a big production, the shots and the blood draws and, but we were all on the same team and we're all in the same belief. And I did have, between my son and my daughter, I did have a miscarriage. So I lost one baby, but
Mm,
my doctor was, I was really upset. But my
mm,
doctor, he called me personally and he was like, Antoy, as soon as, you're feeling better, you don't have to discuss it now, but we're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep making your vision happen. And those are the kinds of people that you have to have in your life, whether it's a doctor, a spouse, a partner, a friend, even if it's family that's a naysayer and not on board with your vision, you cannot share that with them. You just keep it to yourself.
yes.
Unfortunately, you can't just all the time just alienate family, but you don't want to share that positive vision with people who are going to, speak negativity onto it, because you're already doing all you can to
Yes.
envision this vision that you're already probably thinking may or may not happen, but you're trying to have as much faith in it that it could happen as possible. So to have a voice on the side saying, hey, what, who you think that's, didn't the doctor say you can't have it? So
Yes.
you don't want that energy around you at all. And, even during the time when I was going through IVF, I really stepped away from a lot of people because for some reason people want to tell you stories, negative stories about stuff of people that they know that happened to people they know that tried
Yeah.
IVF for some reason. I don't think it's on purpose. I think people naturally will be like, oh, I know so and so and they lost their baby. And it's like, I don't want to like I don't want to hear
Yes.
that when I'm trying to have a baby. So yeah, so you definitely
Yes.
have to, stay true to your vision, even when people are telling you you can't do it.
Yes, yes. I love that. Oh my gosh. Antoy, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing such a powerful story. I know there are people listening to this right now that really, truly deep down need to hear this story. And not just people that are, went through something that you did. But this story of yours, I think applies to so many people, especially like from what you said is, there are going to be people that are going to say, oh, that's not possible. That ain't possible. But you had such a strong belief. It's spiritually, you believed it in your soul, in your spirit that, nope, I will not accept less. This is going to happen. And I love that. And I've seen that from knowing you, how you have something in mind and it happens. Like Antoy is not all talk. Like she has this vision. If it's not even a matter of, oh, I'm not sure. Oh no, it's happening.
Yeah.
She's someone that really executes so well. And
Yeah.
I really look up
And
to you.
oh, thank you. And I don't want people to think, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I just had this idea and made it. I mean, it was years. I mean,
Of
a lot of
course.
things that I do,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll have an idea. It could take me 5 or 10 years. Like I've had scripts and it's taken years to
Yes.
manifest. But even if I'm not actively working on it, there's always a part of my brain that says one day that thing's going to be out there, or that's going to happen. But I do, I've had people say to me like, oh, that's a pipe dream. Because, sometimes
Yes.
people, they don't see or they don't understand how you could possibly do that. Even myself, sometimes I don't have to know the how. And I finally told myself, you don't need to know how it's going to
Yeah.
happen because
Yes.
my focus is making sure everything within me is aligned to it already being here already. And
Yes.
so I put it out there. I say, this is what I want. And then I just start being grateful for it already being here. Like, thank you for my babies. Thank you for my new job. Thank you for my new company. Thank you for my $1 million, whatever it is. But
Yes.
not being in
Yes.
that space of I'm gonna, but being in the space of I am already. And
Yes.
that's what creates the energy in you. So I would started with saying if I was going somewhere and I was driving and I knew there wasn't a lot of parking, I'd say a parking space has already been arranged for me. And it always worked. And I'm like, this thing
Wow.
works. So that's kind of how I started like manifesting things like, oh, okay, I would just already say it's already done, not like it's gonna be done. It's
Yes.
like it's already here. So yeah, so it keeps me focused. I think for some people need additional support. And that's why I love coaching. And even in
Yes.
production, you have a whole team that's supporting you, the right team. But as a coach, because I do a lot of execution accountability with clients, it's like having to know that if you say, I'm going to write this script or whatever it is, I'm going to do
Yes.
this goal in my life, and you tell someone who's supportive of you, and they're going to keep you in check. Like, hey, so what's up with that script? Did you write anything yet? Or, what's up with,
Yeah.
like, did you do that? So if you have some checks and balances with your goals, that's very helpful
I
as
love
well.
that.
And that's what the great thing about having a crew is like on the production is everyone's kind of working together. You have people that are experts in everything and everyone's kind of, supporting each other and whatever might be happening along the
Yeah.
way. So yeah.
Wow. People only see the highlight reel of, oh, it looks like they just got there overnight. Oh, wow. It must have been easy. But people forget about the blooper reel. And you don't see that. People don't see the behind the scenes. People don't see like, like us like trying to write the scripts or like the crying days, like, oh, I don't know what, and nobody sees that. They only see
Yeah.
what is like produced. But that's why I love seeing the stories from behind the scenes of
Mhm.
that, you know?
Yeah, I
And
love the behind the scenes. One thing that I'm working on, I'm coming back out on social media and stuff, and I have a mentor coach who's also my partner with the new business. And one of the things he says is like being authentic, especially when you're putting yourself out on social. It's like not just showing the highlight reel, as you say,
yes,
because people can't relate to that because most people's lives
right.
aren't like that. Their lives has those ups and downs. And
Yes,
so one thing that I'm, I've started doing is just like videos where I'm walking and I'm just talking like, hey, I'm out for a walk, or, oh, remember that goal I
yes,
talked about? It didn't go that well. Just so people know that
yes,
it's just not all aspirational. Like everything is just wonderful and amazing. And it just all happens in a vacuum. And, because it's not realistic. Some things do happen that way. There's things that you could be reaching for, going for that could happen quickly. And there's other things that won't. It just
yeah,
depends on its timing too, like the right timing. Like maybe it's not time for it to happen yet.
yes,
But what I try not to do is, as far as time, I try not to lock myself. I'll create a schedule, but I try not to lock myself into a time. And just a
yes,
brief story, there was a guy that worked with me, and he was an amazing photographer. This guy was so awesome. And one of his dreams in life was to go to Africa and shoot and then
yes.
do an exhibit and bring it back to the US and do an exhibit. So when I was interviewing him for the job, and I said, what's your biggest dream, your biggest goal? And he said, I want to, go to Africa. I'm saving up to go to Africa, so within the next 10 years, I hope to do that. And I'm like, 10 years? I was like, why 10 years? And he was like, oh, because, with my job, I figure, with my bills. And I said, I know you don't know me, but when you put that out there, can you remove that time frame? Because if you put that time frame that it's going to take 10 years,
Yeah,
it's probably going to take you 10 years. But if you
yes,
remove that time frame, you leave room for it to happen sooner. So I said, I know you don't know me, but just try it. So
yeah.
he did it. And it was literally within 8 months. What happened was, it
Wow.
was like less than a year. I think it was around 8 months. He got a job. Someone that knew someone said, oh, he's an amazing photographer. They flew
Yes.
him to Africa. They paid him. He did his photos, and then he did an exhibit in Los Angeles. And
Wow.
he invited me. He was like, this would not have happened unless you had told me to remove that 10-year thing,
Whoa.
so it happened sooner. So the flexibility, and this happens in production, like you can have, like you said, a
Yes.
plan, but be open and flexible that it could happen sooner. Don't be
Yes.
so, because you're literally creating this. So if
Yes.
in your spirit, in your soul, you're like, 10 years from now, I'm going to have this thing. That's what you put out there. 10 years
Yeah.
from now, you're going to have it. You're going to have it
Yes.
in 10 years. And
Right.
you don't leave that room for maybe you could meet someone tomorrow who you have it next week. So just always keep that opening there, that you could
Yeah.
have those blessings pop in.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. 10 years now, the post-production side of things. So we've learned all about these wonderful elements, wisdom, stories of what it takes to be in the production phase, what it takes to be successful within it. And now we're at the stage where, post-production, we're looking back, we're reflecting on the wins, the setbacks, but the setbacks were the setups for something bigger. Let's talk about that aspect of the reflection side of things, looking back of what actually occurred. What would you say, from your line of work through all of the experiences that you've had, what are the best ways for people to kind of look back on what they have done, what they've executed upon, what they've accomplished?
Wow. I love this one because I'm also an editor. So
Yes.
I'm ready to find those connections
Wow.
between the actual edit of a production and then the
Yes.
life thing. So let's have some fun with it. So one of the great things I love about being an editor, as opposed to all the other roles that I play, is that no matter what you messed up in the previous phases, you can kind of edit it. And one a
Yes.
famous quote is "fix it in post" is what they usually say, and that's like not
That.
what people want to hear when you're in production. Because when you're in production and they say "fix it in post," that means they're not even going to go back to try to fix it in that moment. They expect
Yes.
the editor to fix it, which sometimes can be difficult. So this is the post production phase is where you can kind of polish everything. So
Yes.
you're getting all the footage. But in order to do that as an editor, you literally have to look at all the footage that you have,
Yes.
and which all the footage reflects. It's similar to your life, going backwards in your life and saying, looking at all those pieces in your past, pulling them all into the future and say, how can we make this better moving forward? And then
Yes.
having that a finished product that you can move forward with. So I
Right.
love the editing portion. I try not to edit the story itself because the story's what happened as it happened and what
Yes.
can I get from that story. But the great part about editing is you do have that opportunity to reflect. And one thing I learned editing and being, doing camera and production is that the more you edit, the more you know the next time you do a production, what to do and what not to do. So each time
Yes.
you edit something, you're like, oh man, I wish they had gotten that, another take of that.
Yeah.
Or they, I wish they'd gotten a different angle of that. Or, it would have been a great
Yes.
if they had like a drone shot, so the next time you do another production with a similar type scene, you can, when you're on the set, you can do it then so that that editor will have it. So that's
Yes.
the great part about post production is just being able to reflect on what's happened, what you have, looking at your past footage and putting it together in a nice
Yes.
package that you can work with, and gaining the knowledge and the learning from that production to bring forward with you. And then as far as with life, isn't that wonderful that we can look back without judgment, of course, on what we've done, what we did in that certain moment, bringing that learning forward and saying, okay, if that were to ever happen again, this is what I would do, or,
Yes.
just being able to apply what we learned from reflecting on how we did before, so that's the great part that I love about post production. And also like making it, I call it flossy,
Yes.
flossy and
Yes.
glossy.
Yes. Yes.
So you can really polish yourself up, polish your life up, you know, once you're reflecting back. Like if I had to reflect back in this moment on my life, like where I am now and what I would want to bring from the past, where I am now is because I've been a mom for 5 years now. I have slipped and with COVID, we kind of all slipped into this, I call it relaxed casual chic. We all slipped into that.
Oh
So as
my
I'm putting myself
goodness.
out there now and moving forward with, my branding and things like that, I'm pulling from my modeling days where I had to do my hair, I had to do my makeup, I had to make sure if I was stepping out that I was super fly, my that I looked good, the image and branding from my modeling times. From my entrepreneur side, I'm pulling in, like, okay, knowing how to present yourself as a business, how to set up your brand, things like that. Even my shy parts, sometimes those are my quiet times. Like I'm pulling that and I'm like, okay, sometimes you just need to go chill out, maybe go meditate, maybe relax and
Yes.
just be an introvert for a little bit. So all of those pieces that and those key points throughout my life, I'm pulling that, I'm editing it together. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, how can I be the best version of myself in this moment that I've been in
Yes.
all of those pieces of my life, So that's the
Right.
great part about now, and even if you're a young person, there's still parts that you can be like, okay, well, that I don't want to do again, and that I do want to do, or this is what I want to bring with me, or this is what I'd like to do. And if you have things that are necessary, like there might be things right now I need because I haven't been a strong salesperson. That's not something that has been strong for me in my life. I don't actually, I don't want to say I don't like sales because that's working against what I'm trying to do. But in the past, I did not like sales. But I'm having to learn now that that's part of doing your business. You have to be
Yes.
comfortable putting yourself out there, sharing your offers, doing all of that. So that's a new skill that I can say,
Mm,
well, in the past, that didn't exist. So moving forward, I want to make sure I incorporate that into, my
yes.
life and myself. So post-production is amazing.
I can tell, like, just from your energy, I can totally tell, like, post-production, it just brings a spark to your eyes. That's so wonderful to hear. And I love, before you said it, I knew it was coming when you said flossy glossy. I just love that. I was like, ooh, it's coming, it's coming. Flossy
Yeah.
and glossy. I absolutely love that. And something that came to mind when you said flossy and glossy is, asking yourself, what does flossy and glossy look like to you? Right? Because sometimes we see what society is telling us what flossy and glossy is supposed to look like. But what does it actually look like for you? Putting societal norms to the side, what does that look like for you? Looking at the marketing side of things and getting ready for the show release. I think those two can kind of in a way go hand in hand. So how about we move on to that section from the marketing
Awesome.
standpoint and to the what was I saying? The show release of it all. How are you marketing yourself? We spoke about sales also, and with sales, there comes, especially, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot that comes into like sales and marketing yourself. And how is it that you can stand out there, kind of keeping in mind the foundational aspects in a way of marketing, but what makes you different? What's your spin on all of it? What would be some of the advice you would give from in our big metaphor of marketing if we were to apply it to life? What do some of the golden nuggets of wisdom or techniques or wisdom that you can impart upon someone?
Oh, wow. So whenever the marketing aspect is coming out, we're trying to figure out who's our audience, right? We're trying to
Yes.
figure out what our image is, what our branding is, who's our target? Like, authenticity is key. And not everyone is
Yes.
confident all the time about who they
Right.
are as a person, but remember that whoever you are, there's someone who can identify with some part of your experience and you and
Yes.
what you've been through. And when you're putting yourself out there, especially if you're putting yourself out in any way, like, as an expert or not, there's someone who's behind you in the journey that doesn't know everything that you know. So sometimes I think that
Yeah.
people, and sometimes in coaching, we call it imposter syndrome. They're not sure, like, they're waiting to find out, like, someone's going to find out I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. So that happens in many industries, but the marketing aspect is just putting yourself out there fully,
Yes.
wholly, authentically. And
Yeah.
whatever that life story is, whatever kind of star you are, whether you're an action hero or whether you're, the comedic relief, whatever your role is, really fully stepping into that and owning it, and you may not even have the confidence when you first step into it and own it. But once you step into it and
Yes.
own it, you'll be there. But people are going to identify with you. Your tribe will find you. They will see something in you and they'll be like, I really identify with like that. And that's how people
Yes.
end up with mega fans. There's some people and you look at them and they're like, you might see them on social media and you're like, how did that person have 1 million followers? And you just don't understand. It's because they're putting themselves out there authentically and wholly and
Yes.
unapologetically, and even in the face of fear. And a lot of ones will see that and be like, they're willing to put themselves out there and be vulnerable. And I identify with that. And so people connect with that.
Yes. I love that. You may not have that confidence right now, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's like it will forever be that way. I know, like for me, I don't have much confidence.
And if you don't have confidence, literally show up and say, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's the
Yes.
authenticity part, because I think in past marketing, especially with social media, the thing was to show up
Yes.
on the private jet, on the yacht, and in all of these places, which the average
Right.
person isn't living like that, you know? So they had an audience because people wanted to see how people are living, but people are really moving more towards authenticity now. So if you're coming on and your hair's a mess and you just rolled out of bed and you're like, I'm depressed right now, and you're talking to your audience about, there's someone in bed with their hair undone,
Yes.
depressed. So they're gonna find you, and they'll appreciate that you're willing to put yourself out there in that way. So it's not
Yes.
about being kempt. It's not about being confident. It's about being who you are, where you are in that moment, because there is someone else and lots of someones who are also in
Yes.
that place in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so true. But I always like to say motivation also comes from taking action, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that challenge you in all the good ways. Those are the things that build resilience. And just as a byproduct, the confidence just comes out just like that, which
Yeah,
is so beautiful. And
yeah.
one of the things I was thinking about, that came to mind now is a great segue is the accomplishments that you've accomplished. Sometimes we don't really take the time to look back, even if it is the smallest accomplishment. I was just now thinking of people who are really, depressed. And I think just them, say, getting out of bed or having the energy to take a shower is an accomplishment in itself. So one of the things that I do, and I'd love to hear from you what you do, Antoy, one of the things that I do in terms of keeping track of some of my accomplishments is creating a smile file. So if I were to receive a message from you that's really beautiful, if I had an accomplishment of launching a podcast, I take screenshots of this, or I write it down in a notepad and I screenshot it and I add it into this little folder on my phone, and it has everything. And so whenever I feel really low on one of the days that I'm like, being an entrepreneur is difficult, the roller coaster of it all, I go back into that smile file and remind myself, actually, I'm not too bad. I'm flossy glossy. It's in the making.
That's
you
right.
know? Yes, yes.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that smile file. I might borrow it.
Yes,
Or,
definitely.
well, this is something I always tell my clients. If you have a big goal, don't wait till you accomplish that to celebrate and
Yes.
party. Celebrate every step along the way. So, even
Yes.
if they come to a session, they're like, oh, well, guess what, Antoy, guess what happened? But it's not the big goal. It's just something they accomplished along the way. I'll be like, okay, so how did you celebrate? And they're like, I didn't. I was like, okay, so they're like, okay, by
Yes.
next session, I'll do something special. It could be something simple. Like with me, I think the way I celebrate is very simple. Like it could be like something I really want to get myself,
Yeah.
or I'll go get a bottle of wine and have some wine. And it's about the intention of the celebration. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm just going to go do, this big old thing. But it could be as long as the intention is there with whatever you're doing, it could be like, okay, when I accomplish this goal, I just want to go hang out with my girlfriends and have lunch or something.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people think it has to be like this whole big thing. And so it may
Right.
or may not happen along the way. But if you keep it really, like one of my favorite, I'm Caribbean. So whenever I do something, I'm like, I'm going to get me some oxtail. And then I was a vegan for a while, so I couldn't eat oxtail. It was like the worst. But then, after my children, my doctor's like, you need to keep your levels up, so you need to eat real meat occasionally. And so that's my thing. Like I'll go grab some oxtails, or some curry chicken, or some rice and peas. I'm getting hungry now. But
Oh my gosh.
something that means something to you, and as you're doing it, you just if you're sipping that wine, you just say, I'm so amazing. I accomplished that. That is so awesome. So it's like the intention as you're doing it to celebrate that. Because what
Yes.
happens is if people wait till they accomplish the big goal, there's no motivation along the way to do it. But if you're doing it along the way, like you're having your little celebrations here and there, it's like, yeah. And then, like you said, it builds
Yes.
that confidence. It's like, yeah, I hit that. I hit that. Yeah, I hit that too. I hit that. Okay, I'm on
Yes.
my way.
As we, get towards the end of our podcast, is there anything that you feel like you haven't covered or you want to leave our audience with today?
I would say go for it. Like whatever it is, don't let anyone stop you, and definitely not yourself. Because a
Yes.
lot of times we're our worst enemies as far as doing things, and definitely have support. I mean, accountability is key with anything you're trying to do. Tell someone who supports you that supports you to the core, and so that you can check in with them and make sure you've done what you need to do. And I love celebrating. Celebrate all your wins, however small. Just
Yes.
celebrate along the way. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It doesn't have to be about money. It could be like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk, in a certain
Yes.
park, or you're going to go visit, a landmark or something. It doesn't have to be huge, but just put the intention of celebration when you accomplish those goals. I mean, whenever a movie premieres, I mean, it's big time. It's like the red carpet and everybody's dressed up and all
Yes.
that. And that's something I like to do. Sometimes I'll just dress up for no reason, and just be
Yeah.
like, okay, like, we're going to celebrate today, just me being awesome. So,
Yeah.
you don't even need a reason, you can do it anytime. But when your life is a show or a film, it puts you in a mindset of you're in the place where you are the writer, director,
Yes.
producer, and the star. Let's not forget it. You are the
Right.
star. This is your show. You should not be second fiddle to anyone,
That's
and
right.
everyone that's there is supporting your vision and your cause. So you have to have the right team, the right people, all of that around you. And, I think if people felt more empowered with whatever's going on around me, I created that. Whether
Yes.
you believe it or not, you created it, whether it was consciously or unconsciously or by default. So
Right.
whatever's going on, there was a decision somewhere down the line that you made, or, it kind of came into your life and you didn't say, get the heck out of here, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
so you're living that process. You do have control of what's around you and what's in your life. And so once you have that awareness and you take
Yes.
those reins, like, oh, okay, I don't like that. That's got to go. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to stay, more of that, and really take ownership of your life or your film or your show, or your production, as we're
Yes.
talking about. Just take ownership of what's going on. And I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of people do get down, because they don't feel that level of like, I have no control of what's going on around me. And so
Right.
you want to take as much ownership as you can of that. And, you know, I don't want to say the word control, but manage the things you're able to manage. And if you're not able to
Yes.
manage it, get help in managing the other things that you can't. So I
Right.
guess
Right.
that would be my my parting thoughts. Just be you, baby, all
Yes.
the way you can be. It's your show.
Yes.
It's your movie.
Yes.
Be you. Be the star that you are.
Oh, wow. That rhymed. Be the star
Yeah,
that you
that's funny.
are. You are truly impacting someone out there. And I love through every single step that you've taken in your life, every single career, every single life experience you've had, you have impacted a lot of people. So thank you so much for that. And Antoy, before we go, can you give our listeners today, where can they find you, your socials, website, all of that good stuff?
Oh, yeah. So my website is antoygrant.com. My production company is mangoseed.tv. My coaching school is coachingheroes.coach. And on social media, all the platforms, I am at Antoy Grant, at Mangoseed TV, and at The Antoy Show. We didn't get into it that I actually have my own show, The Antoy Show.
Oh,
So check that
yes.
out. It's on YouTube, and there's a lot of inspiration, DIY, and fun stuff
Yeah, awesome. Yes, definitely subscribe, follow Antoy. She is absolutely a boss. Exactly what I said at the beginning. Flossy glossy. Thank you so much, Antoy, for your time. Thank you so much to all of the listeners that are listening today. I'm sure that you took away a lot from this chat today. And I will see you next time on the Life Unlock Code. Have a good day. Bye bye.